right. Hello. It is a pleasure as always to be here. This is B. Welcome back to the Second Paradigm and to another episode of Trending Energetics. Today we're speaking about a feeling that is certainly becoming more common inside of the collective, but it's really only applicable to certain types of people, to those that are actively exploring spirituality. Now, in all likelihood, if you are feeling this feeling in any way, shape, or form, it's because you're starting to become somewhat disillusioned with mainstream spirituality. And not just for any reason, but for a very specific emotional reason. And this is the emotion we really want to highlight today because it leads to a very good place. And that emotion is this: there is no way for me to sustain being positive. There's no way that I can keep up my thoughts and emotions, my vibration, enough to produce a life that is good. Life is getting too difficult for me to be positive. My positivity is starting to become more and more fake and require more and more effort to sustain. It is draining, it is exhausting, and I'm about to give up. But I don't know if giving up is okay, because will my life fall apart if I stop being positive? Again, this is a feeling that is becoming increasingly more common, but really only amongst those that already are plugged into some sort of manifestation framework. So if you're feeling this, right, chances are that you believe in some way, shape, or form that your thoughts create your reality. And if you believe this spiritual framework, if you work inside of this, there's a sort of requirement of you that your thoughts be good, that your internal world be good, that you maintain some semblance of positivity and gratitude so that you don't manifest anything bad, and so that you can manifest a better life into the future. It seems as though the path that New Age spirituality or mainstream spirituality at large has laid out for people is to continually refine your vibe until you are so positive that life can't help but give you good things. Now, there are some ideological justifications for why that might work. Quantum mechanics, vibration and frequency. You are vibrating at the frequency of things that are good, and things that are good come to you. Now, it's not that this is completely untrue, because the more that you entertain manifestation in these ideas, and the more that you learn to unlock some of your psychic abilities as a human being and recognize that there's this whole underbelly of experience that's not just physical, and that isn't really acknowledged in mainstream science or in the general consensus. The more that you unlock these psychic abilities, the more you recognize that you can sort of read a series of steps or a series of feelings or a way of being, a state. You can psychically see and feel who you need to be to get certain outcomes. And if you want those outcomes deeply enough, you can find a way to get there using your psychic abilities. Now, we could call that a secret, but a lot of people are learning to do it. It's not quite so much of a secret anymore. Human beings have psychic capabilities, and those psychic capabilities allow you to read your etheric to-do list. It allows you to read the person that you must become in order to acquire your desires, or in order for you to live inside of a world, a personal world that is more representative of what you are wanting. Now, depending on what you want, there are different paths for you to go down. So it's important for you to continue to stay focused on the things that you are wanting so that you can create them. This is a working system. But it's exhausting. And the thing that isn't mentioned inside of this ideological framework is that in order to become these people, in order to become this iteration of yourself that you have to be in order to get these things, you have to leave your soul behind. It's not obvious. But you are choosing states in exchange for rewards, in exchange for outcomes. And those states aren't representative of who you are. That's the downside of manifestation. Now, there's a subset of the population, again, that's beginning to understand that there is an emotional toll here. That sometimes manifestation feels like existential crisis. Now, it shouldn't, right? Because you as a spiritual individual, you're on the cutting edge of consciousness. You shouldn't be feeling existential crisis. You should be excited and grateful and feel great about all of the development that you've done. But there's the same hollow feeling at the end of manifestation roads as there is to the general traditional path. It's the exact same thing. One, you're following a sort of collective consensus blueprint, maybe that you've learned socially. Maybe it's more obvious what the rules of that base traditional game are. But this new rule set of how you need to act, how you need to present yourself, how you need to feel, how you need to show up, how you need to relate to people, the vibe you need to carry with you, even if you're not socially receiving those rules in the same way, you are psychically receiving those rules. And at the end of following that rule set, at the end of playing that game to receive your reward for that game, there's some feeling of hollowness that is just a byproduct of playing a game. Now, more and more spiritual people are beginning to understand that their internal world isn't what they want it to be, and that might have something to do with their spiritual ideology. Some people are beginning to question New Age spirituality, mainstream spirituality at large. Some people are beginning to question, is this thing that I've been doing dark? Now, it's not a bad question, but that question inevitably leads to, so what then is light? Maybe I should go read the Bible, become a Christian, and forget all of this phenomenological experience, try to turn off all of my psychic capabilities and pretend none of it happened, write it all off as darkness, and go back to playing some other more traditional game, but plus Jesus. Now, that's not a terrible approach per se, but typically what people end up doing down these paths, Christian or not, Bible or not, is chasing and pursuing things that require them to play a certain character to then receive new results. They leave behind the New Age game, they leave behind the manifestation game, and they pick back up another one. The problem is rarely ever solved with a return to Christianity or an arrival at Christianity. It just doesn't solve this problem. This problem is much more specific. The problem is a denial of who you actually are and of your deepest knowing. That is the problem inside of mainstream spirituality, is that despite it being called spirituality, despite all of the talk of soul, of alignment, of truth, there is a deep denial of actual wisdom in exchange for positivity, in exchange for gratitude. Because not all truths are grateful. Not all deepest knowings are positive. Sometimes the messages that you get inside of your peace from your real-time personal connection to external higher benevolence, from true, genuine wisdom, the organizational force behind all of reality, light, God, sometimes the things you get from God are this aspect of your life is draining you to the point where you don't even know who you are anymore. And the only way to ever feel better is to entertain that maybe it's time to leave, and when you are ready, to exit. That's not positive. This job, this way of being, this friend group, or more specifically, the character that you are playing inside of this friend group is so out of alignment with who you actually are, what is required of you to receive the results that you are manifesting, the rule book that you are playing by for your rewards, financial, social, emotional, the impact of living as this person that is not you is growing so large that the existential crisis feelings are beginning to snowball. And although it doesn't make sense, why? Because you're doing everything right. You're playing by the rules. You should feel better. Although it doesn't make sense, it's only going to continue to get worse because you are playing a character that is not you. The only way to rid yourself of this existential crisis feeling is to come back and to be honest with yourself, which means being negative again. Many New Agers, or many people that are exploring spirituality at large, regardless of whether they like the term New Age or subscribe to that term, many individuals exploring manifestation, having a high vibration, doing thought and belief work in order to maintain and elevate that vibration, many of these individuals are on a crash course toward existential crisis that only deepens and deepens and deepens with no real solution whatsoever except escaping the ideological framework as a whole. So when we say there's a subset of the population, specifically the spiritual population, that's beginning to question why they are manifesting, and that's having a hard time keeping up the positivity, having a hard time being grateful today, it's not that this is some challenge to overcome. It's truthfully, this is great news. Because acknowledging that emotion is the first step to then having some freedom from the spiritual rule sets, from the dogmatic, fixed rule sets of mainstream spirituality that require you to maintain an emotion in order to be okay in life, in order to be taken care of in life. Your emotions are what create your reality. That will always lead to tearing yourself apart. It will always lead to tearing yourself apart. And it will always lead to such a lack of authenticity that you begin to lose track of who you actually are and what you actually feel, what your thoughts actually are. That's no way to live, certainly not long term. Now, for some individuals that have been exploring manifestation or spirituality at large, have explored these themes and have been backing away from them, it's important to acknowledge that in all likelihood, your intuition led you to these spiritual ideologies in the first place. There's a lot of good that comes from exploring a pocket of the world where psychic phenomena is real, where you can acknowledge beings, where you can acknowledge that your state does have some sort of impact on the way that you are acting, where you can acknowledge that there are different forces that act upon you that get you to behave in different ways. And if you can find a way to feel you can find a way to act in a way that gets a certain result, that sort of understanding translates incredibly well to then just being yourself. Understanding that there are pressures that push in on you from all around that try to get you to be something other than what you are now, that convince you that there's something wrong with the experience that you are having, that you should be more positive even. It's the same skill set at the end of the day. You can learn to trace positivity carefully, methodically, but you can also use that same skill set to learn to trace who you actually are and your soul's deepest expression and your real-time personal connection to higher external benevolent wisdom that is God. Your deepest knowing inside of your piece of what is wrong in your life, what is out of whack, what is not true, and what is real, what is genuine, what is lasting, what is sustainable, what is an actual expression of who you are and what you ultimately are becoming. It's the same skill set. So for countless individuals, they were led straight to New Age spirituality, straight to exploring things that at the end of the day create a lot of misery. Not so they will be miserable for the rest of their life, not so they'll be positive for the rest of their life, but so that they'll learn to understand the fabric of reality. So they'll learn to understand the mechanics of psychic phenomena. But once you understand the mechanics, once you understand that there is something beyond physical reality, once you understand that your state has an impact on your decisions, once you understand that you can change and alter your state and move into a wide variety of embodiments, then you have the capability to choose to be who you actually are. Then you have the ability to go on the next leg of the journey, which is discovering who is my soul. Who am I really, and what more can I shed, including New Age spirituality and all the things that I thought I needed to be, all the positivity, all the gratitude. What if I say fuck again? What if I curse again? What if I reclaim my negativity again? What if I yell at people sometimes? What if I'm at the store and I go, hey, you can't cut in line? What if I have some confrontation? What if I disagree with some people? What if I acknowledge that those pieces of my emotional being are already in me and I'm denying them out of fear that I'm going to lose everything? Because my spiritual ideology has now turned me into a prisoner of emotion where I am required to be happy. I am required to be positive. And that sort of pressure makes it hollow even when I can get there, even when I can be happy. The misery is not the point. The misery is not the lesson. The misery is a byproduct of the ideology. And once you see it, you can leave it. You can stop at any time. But you will never lose your newly refined experience. You never lose the internal skill sets to feel what your body feels like and to understand what different states feel like. You don't lose your psychic abilities when you stop manifesting. You don't lose your psychic abilities when you stop subscribing to spiritual ideology that's flat out making you miserable. Reality is reality. And you've learned a wide variety of things about that reality. But for this subset of the population that we're talking about that's feeling this feeling that we're zeroing in on, it's okay to let go of having to be positive all the time. It's okay to let go of trying to manage your thoughts at all. Because there are other emotions that you can aim for, like emotionally neutral. You can try to find who you are outside of the emotion. You can try to find your deepest truth. You can try to find what your soul actually believes. And what you find inside of that piece is that soul and God, light, isn't so manic. It's not so frenzied. It's not so, come on, we gotta go, we gotta make everything happen. We gotta feel so good. I feel great. I feel grateful. Soul doesn't feel like that. Soul's never felt like that. That's a game that spiritual children play while they figure out the way the world works. And at some point you grow up and you recognize that you don't need to do any of that. But you recognize that you've played that game and learned the lessons, and you can take those lessons with you into the next iteration of the spiritual journey. What is that? Discovering who you are, what your deepest truth is, and learning how to trace your actual soul's essence. Making your world a reflection of who you actually are. Compromising zero. Because there's still plenty of compromise in positivity. There's a lot of bending over backwards inside of mainstream spirituality. There's a lot of denying your own experience in mainstream spirituality. And when that goes away, some of the existential crisis starts to lift. You don't feel so bad about yourself. You don't feel so bad about life. We're truthfully pretty relieved, excited that this sort of tension is happening, that this emotion is playing out at all. It's a good thing. It's not happening to everyone. There are plenty of people inside of mainstream spirituality that will continue to try their best to be positive every day of their life. But you're going to notice if you are escaping from this, if you're seeing through it, if you're one of these people in this subset of the population that's feeling this exact emotion we're describing, if you are feeling this trending energetic, you're going to notice how hollow and fake spirituality actually is, and it's going to begin to bother you. That's not a bad thing. It really is not a bad thing to look at spiritual people and go, wait, you're not feeling grateful? You're devastated. I can see it in your eyes. Why are you talking in that way? Why are you denying your own experience? What good does that do? You're feeling it anyway. If you acknowledge it, at least maybe you could do something about it. At least maybe you would know what you're feeling. Maybe you could soothe yourself. The positivity is only going to look faker and faker and faker. That's a good thing. That's you unplugging from the demands that you be positive every moment of your life, something that is impossible. And the more you reflect on it, you might begin to acknowledge that your emotions are they're a sine wave. They go up and down. There's an emotional baseline. When good things happen that are slightly better than the average experience you've been having, you feel pretty good. And when things happen that are slightly worse than the average experience that you're having, you feel bad. But that average is moving constantly. You could win the lottery, have 1 billion people love you, chant your name, celebrate your gifts. And in 2 to 3 weeks, you would begin to normalize to that experience. It could be the best possible experience you could come up with. Every adolescent desire inside of you could come true all at once, and it would be the greatest experience of your life for a very short period of time until you normalize to it. Then you would need it to be better in order to feel good. And anything that was worse than that average would feel just as bad as any other dip below the average has felt. Your emotions are relative to the average experience that you're having. You cannot have a better than average experience all the time, because that then would become the new average. You begin to acknowledge how emotions work. You begin to ground again into your own experience and go, okay, I took some notes from that experience. I learned a lot about phenomenological experience. I learned a lot about psychic phenomena. Maybe there are some beings out there. Maybe there's more to consciousness. Maybe there's more than just physical reality. Maybe there is a God. Maybe there is darkness. Maybe there's some sort of light force. Even if I don't know what it all is yet, or can't quite put together all the pieces yet, there is something beyond this world that is deeply significant, and specifically deeply significant to me. I care a lot. And I'm going to continue to figure out what that is. But I'm going to stop playing this game. Because this game is tearing me apart. Because this game of having to be positive all the time is just me lying to myself and being fake constantly. And I feel threatened by the world. I feel threatened by the universe. That if I don't maintain an impossible standard of emotion, everything will fall apart. And when things do go wrong, I think it's all my fault. And carrying that sort of burden is emotionally destroying. And it's a downward feedback loop. And there are times where I can't get out because I feel so bad and bad things happen and I feel worse. And then I feel worse that I feel worse. Maybe this ideology is making me miserable. Maybe I don't need to do this anymore. Maybe I can just be who I am and that's enough, and maybe my life won't fall apart. If I really feel my deepest truth, I know it won't. I might have some challenges, but my life's not going to suddenly fall apart because it was never my positivity that was holding my life together. There's something bigger here, and I got to figure out what that is. I got to move on to the next leg of my spiritual journey beyond the childish games of mainstream spirituality, beyond trying to manage my own emotions. I have to move beyond that back to the landscape of where does truth really come from? Who am I actually? And can I find who I am and live a life that's representative of my actual soul's essence? Maybe I can move on to this next leg of the journey, leave mainstream spirituality behind entirely, and I will be okay. You will be okay. You will. If this is you, if you are feeling disillusioned with mainstream spirituality, with having to be positive all the time, you can stop. You will be okay. Your positivity does not hold reality together. Truthfully, God does. Not the God of the Bible, not the God of dogmatic belief, not the universe that demands that you be happy all the time. There is an actual organizational force inside of reality that is benevolent, that is good, that has your best interests in mind, that is delivering guidance constantly. And if you want, you can learn to tap into that to a greater degree. You can find guidance inside of your deepest peace. It is not manic. More often than not, it's going to tell you you're doing just fine and there's nothing wrong. And that's going to be confronting in and of itself. There's a whole leg of this journey beyond this childish adolescent spirituality that can only make you miserable. We assure you, you're going to be okay. You don't need to worry about where this goes. You don't need to worry about what the next steps are. You don't need to worry about what your new spirituality is going to be. We just want to affirm in this moment, and your life's going to continue to work out. You're going to continue to find some inner clues of where to go next, but we just want to assure you that your life's not going to fall apart if you can't maintain being positive. It's okay. It really is okay to let yourself collapse out of the game into who you actually are. And once you take some time to recalibrate a little bit, it's not just an endless hole of depression. That's not what's on the other side of this. It's your actual emotions, having actual human emotions again. Anger, sadness, joy, excitement, hope. And all of that's fine. It doesn't need to be segmented out, compartmentalized down into healing sessions where you get to feel your anger for 20 minutes at a time. In a workshop, you get to just feel angry in the middle of the street driving down the road when someone cuts you off, because it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to be an emotional being. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So if you're still with us, feel free to take a few deep breaths, settle in a little bit, give yourself a pat on the back. You're going to be all right. And if you genuinely are teetering in this place, or have even recently gone through this exodus out of mainstream spirituality, thank you for being brave. We assure you you're headed in a better direction, that there's more to spirituality than positivity. Hang in there, keep going. And we'll speak to you at a later time. Bye for now.